Let's take a look at it.
Gameplay reveal. Here we go.
As you watch this brand new footage of Armored Core 6, I'm curious, what do you see? Armored Core or Souls?
I don't really have a... Oh, that's that boss from the cinematic.
Truth is, there's a bit of both here, honestly. I recognize the three-dimensional combat of Armored Core. I've seen its familiar mission structure, its atmosphere, and the unrivaled
You guys wanna see the
customization
chat?
potential that the mecha genre lays claim to.
Oh, that's badass.
But finally, no one can deny that there is a lot of Souls influence in this.
Ooh.
This hard lock-on is
Souls?
not traditional Armored Core. The pacing and the telegraphed attacks would not look out of place in a Souls game.
Sure.
Even the stagger system is basically Sekiro's.
I think that's good. I mean, there are things like, for example, I feel like a lot of games started adopting a
I'm
perfect
okay
dodge or perfect parry system.
Yeah, I like that.
Because a lot of people like... Yeah, he did get yeeted. A lot of people like perfect dodges and perfect parries.
Yes.
So you just have that all the time now. The same with like kind of having the heal mechanics that
Wait,
you
do
have.
they have that in Souls though? Like I like fast-paced combat and like it's like here comes an attack, and if you press like parry right when the attack's about to hit you, or like when it hits you, you just block the attack and you keep fucking hack and slashing into the mob, like, or like you can dodge and like it like rolls around the mob and you continue like slashing. Dark Souls, I don't know if it has that, but I haven't seen any indicator that it does. But it probably does, but I've never played it because like I always thought the combat was too slow. If it has that, that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the combat in Souls is like mega slow. This looks like kind of fast paced because like the mech's moving around real fast and like you can like dodge and move left and right. I like that a lot. Everything seems kind of like slower in the Souls. I mean, this is my opinion.
Dark Souls. A lot of games have those as well now. I think that it's not necessarily just like, the same developer, but it's like just game standards are changing and people like seeing this similar type of gameplay.
Now,
Same as like a lot of games have double jump now. Why? We've had one jump, yes, but what about second jump? It feels good. That's why. It's that simple.
there's a lot I could say right now, but I'm honestly really tired of
Does
this
feel good.
whole debate, and I prefer to move on because there is now...
I don't want to have the debate whether it's like, oh, is this an Armored Core game or a Souls game? In the same way that like Sekiro isn't a Souls game, but it has elements of Dark Souls in it.
Yeah. It's like it's COD.
It's the same as like Bloodborne is like not
Fortnite,
exactly the same.
PUBG, yeah.
So like I don't really give a fuck what type of game it really is. I just want it to be a good game. Fuck who like yeah, I don't like who cares about labels, man? Like I used to love mech games. I feel like mech games, like when was the last time you ever heard of a mech game? Like 2005? What the fuck ever happened to them? I used to love these.
Depends on the game. Don't they have the Gundam game?
And I feel like also, why do we
On
not have
Steam?
more mech games? Because like think about how many microtransactions you could sell for this fucking robot. You could microtransaction gun,
he's giving him
microtransaction
ideas.
boosters, microtransaction boots, microtransaction helmet, microtransaction colors, microtransaction little fucking riding thing here. I mean, come on. How are they not
The
doing
guns.
this? Like, I mean, no, really. I mean, I'm not trying to give them ideas. I'm just saying, let's be honest.
So, Bandai Namco has given me about 4 minutes of gameplay to share here today, but I've
They
actually
probably
seen
took this
a lot
from the
more than
Gundam
this.
game.
Press were actually able to see a live demo of basically
Like they
this
probably
entire
Gundam game was probably
mission.
like
Oh, wow.
And you know the best
practice
part
for
of
this.
that live demo? It's that, unlike in this gameplay, the HUD, the heads-up display,
Yeah.
was completely enabled. I paid a lot of attention to that, and while I don't have any footage of it,
Yeah, of
this
course.
is roughly what it looks like.
Okay, so speed, altitude, expansion, repair, scan, defeated small. Okay, all right, that's fine. Got it. About what I'd expect.
Feel free to pause here, but I will break down this HUD more in depth later in the video so that you can understand it all. Now, I don't know why they haven't just shown it. I think it's
cool.
actually
It looks like you're in
the
a
most
tech.
genius
Makes
part
sense.
about the game that I saw, and I can't wait to explain why. But right now, though, I guess I should just showcase the gameplay that I have been given.
Yeah, that's what I want to see.
In this mission, it's our goal to infiltrate this huge facility. It's occupied by dosers, who are addicts, basically. They're people that have been using that substance that's called coral as a drug. But the facility is also occupied by a group of arms dealers who have this RAD logo, and it's their machines that repel your intrusion as well.
I feel like also, like, look at how expansive these levels are. A game doesn't need to be, quote, open world to be an open world game. Like, I would say Dark Souls 1 is pretty much just as much of an open world game as Elden Ring is.
Well, in the showcase, From Software emphasized the multiple paths that you can take within the mission. You can sort of see those upper and lower paths here off to the left, and they lead to a bridge in the distance, but
It looks
this
cool, but
player's
like, if you can just fly through this shit, which is still fine, but like all this world amounts to nothing because you're just flying to like the objective or whatever, right? Like, if there's no reason to explore the world, then it's just like, all right, where do I gotta go? You know?
build, at least, has very efficient flight capabilities, so they use that to take a more direct approach.
Yeah.
So obviously vertical.
Yeah, the point that I'm making is like the levels are just going to be very, very large. So it's not like you're only going to do one specific thing. Dark Souls 1 definitely makes it feel open world. Yeah, I'm surprised there's so many people that are disagreeing with that. I feel like Dark Souls 1 is extremely open world. Yeah, absolutely.
I have no idea.
And horizontal flight is a big thing in this game. The energy
Never played it.
consumption during vertical flight in particular reminded me a lot of the early generations of Armored Core. So you can fly upwards, but it's probably near impossible to achieve sustained vertical flight, which
Okay.
I think is a good thing, as it stops you from flying over what is clearly more level design than Armored Core has traditionally had, which
Right.
is amazing. One thing that does seem different, though, is it seems like you're way more energy efficient while flying and gliding horizontally in this game, which is something that seems to be partly enabled by the assault boost, which is basically a dodge boost that can be held for more
Okay.
distance and a continued overboost, so to speak.
Like sprint, kind of? Like, how does that work?
Let me just pause here for a second. Did you hear that little beep? So
Oh, it's
a
we're
lock
now in
on. Is that a
range
lock
of those
on?
enemies down there, and if you could see the HUD, then you would know that our lock-on has just automatically jumped onto the closest one. Our missiles are now primed, and we're now in what I'm calling a soft lock-on state.
Okay.
In this state, we still have really free, unrestrained, unguided movement of our mech, and it seems the lock-on can be freely moved between enemies. This should be more familiar to Armored Core fans because it's closer to the way that lock-on has traditionally worked in Armored Core, where
Sure.
you're responsible for keeping enemies within your sights in order to shoot at them, and the lock-on kind of does its own thing. So if we fire our missiles now, which they do, you can see one missile fly off to each nearby enemy, stunning them and giving us an opening to dash in and take them out one by one instead.
Oh, wow.
That's
Bro,
cool.
look at that hitbox. Holy shit. That is what you like. See, this right here is good.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that I pay attention to a lot. That is a godlike hitbox.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that is insane.
Yeah, normally that would hit.
Instead,
That was really
except
cool.
at some point, the
That's the
player
sword?
locked on manually, and now we've transitioned into what I'm going to call a hard
That was really
locked
cool.
on state.
Okay.
But wait, the soft lockdown, you still have to target like all the four.
Now that the enemies are dead, hard lock finally falls off, but wait, there's more enemies
Oh,
up top,
shit.
so the player goes up and commits to more hard-locked combat against them.
Okay.
And again, in this hard-locked state, we see a lock that entirely dictates the direction
Oh, you love
you're
that.
facing. And that is not how lock-on has traditionally worked in Armored Core. In fact, the absence of hard lock-on is, I think, actually a big part of what contributed to Armored Core's traditional identity. So instead, you'll recognize this lock-on state from Souls. But before all the Armored Core fans get upset by this...
As a Souls fan and everything, like, I very much like just being able to lock on.
Perhaps rightfully so.
Yeah.
Remember, the genius kind of is that the soft lock-on state, the traditional lock-on state, still seems to exist. And I think playing
and like, also, like, I feel like lock-on, the reason why I like lock-on is really just for the camera. Just so I don't have to constantly move my camera around.
Yeah, fuck that.
Even if my abilities weren't locked on, I wouldn't really care. I just want to be able to lock on with the camera.
Yes, I agree with that.
That lock-on state will be viable, and it will give you benefits, although you're probably missing out by not hard locking on sometimes and allowing the player and their camera to be very bound to a single enemy and have your movement strafe around them perfectly instead. What's more,
yeah, that was really cool. Let's watch that again.
Perfectly,
Look
very
at this.
bound to a
Look
single
at the way he
enemy
dodges all
and
these
have
attacks.
Your movement strafe around them perfectly.
Yeah, it looks fun.
That was fucking badass.
What's more, in this hard lock-on state, notice how all 4 missiles go to their single target here instead, as opposed to in the soft lock-on state where those missiles were spread evenly around the area to each enemy. That enables some really cool strategy, I think. And speaking of strategy, this player's combat strategy seems to be to use their machine gun to stagger these smaller enemies. Enemy stagger bars are seen here, and they build up visually, just like they do in Sekiro. And you can see the moment that stagger kicks in here.
Yeah, I think, again, stagger is one of the other mechanics that I feel like after... Like, I'd say Dark Souls 3 is whenever you really had a lot more... Like, Dark Souls 1 and 2 have stagger, but I think Dark Souls 3, where you can, like, legit stagger the bosses and do, like, you know, visceral attacks on them, same as Bloodborne, Sekiro, and fucking Elden Ring. I feel like a lot of games now have stagger. Even Diablo 4 has stagger, for example. I think stagger is just a good mechanic. Makes combat more dynamic. Yeah,
state,
that's like another thing that like every game has that now, basically.
And that makes it the perfect time to hit them with all your burst damage, which this player does with their barrage of 4 missiles.
Wait, did that miss him?
This player does with their barrage of...
No, okay, it did hit him. I was about to say.
Or another thing you can do while the enemy is staggered is this.
Yeah, again, that's the kind of stuff that, like...
That was the same footage.
It just feels good to yeet a fucking, like, some mech across the map.
Yeah. You guys remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game on the Super Nintendo? Where, like, I think it was, like, YB or something, and, like, down or up, and you could literally just do this on every enemy, which is, like, actually really cheese, but it still felt really good. Where you take them and just swing them into the fucking camera, like, and they literally fly right into your face. But it was like an instant kill too. It was really good, really strong, but also really fun.
Feels good.
Yeet enemies so far with this kick attack.
Yeah.
Though I feel like this enemy only flew so far because it was already staggered.
Oh yeah.
In any other situation, the kick attack probably just builds up their stagger meter instead. Next clip. The gate was a major waypoint in the showcase, and it seemed to function a lot like a fog gate would in Souls, except when I watched, the player actually took about 10 seconds to hack open this gate. They were vulnerable the entire time they were doing that, and they even got ambushed during that process, so it's a cool way to sort of stop you from progressing too far. In Souls, you can just like run past everything, so it's kind of good that they stop you doing that here. But here they enter a tight corridor, and these in Armored Core traditionally force you to fight quite differently than you would have out in the open.
Yeah, this is like
often
more
in
almost
past
like
Armored
traditional
Core games,
FPS
your missiles would become useless inside, especially if they're the type that fire upwards or outwards, and your long-range weaponry might not be as good either.
So that's really cool. Holy shit, that's badass.
Cool.
Watch that again.
Or outwards, and your
so it just avoids that
might not be as good either. So
that's the kind of shit, dude. I love to see that because this is just straight up good gameplay.
That's
That
why
melee
it's a good
though,
idea
yeah.
to have some close range parts
Gameplay
to
is
help you
sick.
out in tight spaces.
I think the best thing about any game is their ability to make you obviously have fun, but also feel very, very strong without it being like super broken. And even if it is like broken, who cares if it's on like, you know, lower level mobs that aren't bosses? Because you're not going to be able to do that to a boss, I would imagine, right? Like stagger them, or like maybe stagger them, but like push them back like that and shit. Even that would be really cool. As long as you balance it around that, like you being able to do that, it feels cool. Like you feel powerful. Like knocking something back like 40 feet or like 100 feet into a wall feels really good. So I think that definitely, you know, feels good and looks good. So it's great for the not only the streamer but for the viewer.
Shields now, or
Yeah.
maybe in melee blades as well.
God
Speaking
damn.
of shields, they've actually added something that I've always wanted them to add in Souls, and that's a timed block system. So what we know from interviews is that shields now have this brief moment when you deploy them where their defense is way stronger. It happens here. See that pulse when they pull
Valheim actually has this too.
it out? That should be a moment of optimal block, and that's obviously an incentive to
Yeah.
perfectly time your blocks against strong attacks rather than just keeping your shield active. Or
Yeah, Valheim has this, and so does Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, but then is it worth
Yeah,
it?
Valheim.
To
Yeah,
just
it's not.
cast it.
The thing is, like a
go
Valheim
cast,
parry
just take a couple
and
hits in
a
between, or what?
Jedi Survivor like parry with like a ranged attack, both of them have an offensive component. I don't think either of these have an offensive component.
the time. Next, melee weapons. You can clearly do multiple strikes with a lot of these, and having these preset animations makes me think that the blades might be exclusive to the left side, like they are in many previous Armored Core games, rather than being able to dual wield them, although I could definitely be wrong on that. Next we see the scan function for the first time. Enemies are revealed and can
Okay.
be locked onto through walls. I love this. Being able to peek ahead and think about your strategy is so much better than always being forced to figure things out on the fly.
Yeah, Remnant has this with a like there's like a certain weapon mod that does this.
It enables planning based on your build, followed by execution of that plan with your reflexes and your coordination, and that is peak.
Unfortunately, there's
Armored
no
Core to me.
more
Speaking of customization, though,
gameplay
next
than the-
let's
Oh,
talk
wow.
about build
Oh, here we
assembly
go.
in the garage, which
Those few
is another
clips.
huge design pillar of Armored Core.
Oh my
so
God.
Here we thankfully get an overview
Obviously.
of all of the part categories in Armored Core 6.
Obviously.
Here are your 4 weapon slots, your
Right.
4 frame slots, and then your booster, your FCS lock-on part, your generator,
Yeah.
and an expansion
Well, yeah, what's
slot.
that?
This is fewer categories than most Armored Core fans will be used to. Inside parts, hangar weapons, radiators, those are all missing here. That said, the parts that we do see previewed here...
I haven't played any of the other Armored Core games. I think the last mech game that I played was Mech Warrior on the Nintendo 64. So it's been a while. So I don't really know like if those things actually added interesting gameplay mechanics or not.
do have some great depth
No
to
idea.
them, so I think that might make up for having fewer categories.
played.
For example, your generator, which governs your energy, now has cooling built into it rather than radiators being a separate part.
Okay.
And then certain weapons,
they just
like
combined a
this
couple
laser
of them.
dagger, can perform a charge attack if held, which is a depth to the gameplay. We also see certain ranged weapons that have this charging property as well. And then there's missiles, which
Okay.
have unique attack characteristics, you know, as they always have, but their descriptions here are more detailed than ever. Some are capable of multi-lock, which is when missiles fire at multiple targets,
Yeah, that's
which
cool.
I showed off earlier. Some missiles are better for AoE, creating a damage area. Some are better
Like-
for stagger.
Yeah, like where to hit the 4 targets. I'm guessing it just you just like use some lock system and it's like okay beep and it like you just move the cursor over each target beep 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 and then crap, what game was it that had something similar like that? Oh man, was it Star Fox? I don't know, I can't remember, but yeah, there are definitely plenty of games that do that and it's cool. Yeah, I can't remember though.
Enemies like
I have
these, which
dementia.
contribute greatly to buildup of ACS strain. and some missiles will just be great for taking out airborne enemies, like these, which are deliberately slowed down. Missiles hound targets during lengthy airborne time, enabling heavy pressure tactics.
Okay.
All these build considerations are such a fun, amazing part of Armored Core that I can't wait for people to discover. And if you're a new player, I think a lot of the time you will be able to get by simply reading these written descriptions, but the real endgame in Armored Core is learning to understand the complex stats and specs of each part, seen down here.
I feel like these stats aren't super complicated.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like
I mean, before he even says anything, let's be honest. You're gonna get upgrades. They're gonna be better than the other shit. You know, is it gonna be? Is it like the real question is this gonna be like some linear? Okay, upgrade to the max till you get like your best in slot, or is it gonna be like, okay, there's like, oh, this is the best for like a heavy mech. This is the best for like a light mech. This is the best for like a medium mech. You know what I mean? And then you sacrifice power for, you know, movement speed, vice versa. You know, that sort of thing. I wonder. Or it's just like you have to build your mech up to be like the mega best in slot, period, and that's it. I don't really know. Either way is fine though. But I would like just a linear system, honestly, which seems kind of boring because it's like less builds or whatever. But I would like the linear, okay, this level, oh, now, nice, you got an upgrade for that slot. Okay, upgrade. I just prefer that. But I wouldn't mind like a system where it's like, oh, you're stronger but you're slower kind of thing. I think Souls and those games do that, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's not how it is.
you can understand this. If you are interested in the game, you can understand it. Just wait, okay.
Though,
all right,
if you
that
think these
seems okay.
stats are overwhelming, I've got news for you.
Oh god.
So this is probably the simplified version. It reminds me a lot of Armored Core 4, where you were shown the most important stats on parts,
right?
But then you could toggle the display to reveal this.
Somebody made this in their basement.
So stats can get pretty intense, and while having a simplified view and glanceable icons is obviously the more modern approach,
oh no, more numbers
I really hope
and
that
words.
they don't shy away from these overwhelming
no.
stat screens, because they are such a hallmark of the series.
I have to agree with them there. Yeah, I think that they should have the super complicated stats.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not like super important and everybody's just going to look it up on like, you know, some website on what to do. So at least give the people that want to know life, at least give them that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
In the showcase, the player actually accessed this garage mid-mission after being destroyed by this quad-legged enemy. Their mid-range biped build was having a lot of trouble dealing any kind of damage to this enemy at range, so they wanted to change their build to an agile,
you can change mid-fight
instead.
Right,
and
there you
they
go.
did it all manually, and it took less than a minute, and it was so convenient.
Oh, wow.
Instead of having to do the entire mission again, they
I like that a
simply
lot, actually.
died, they loaded up the garage from the menu, they tweaked their build, and then they returned to the checkpoint that they had unlocked.
Oh, but you have to die, though.
I really like that, because one of the things that kind of sucks in Dark Souls
I
and
would
also
just
in
say,
Elden...
before he continues, I would just say that being able to swap like immediately would be cool. Like, okay, pause the game, swap, and then continue fight, because like, especially for your first playthrough, you're not gonna know what boss does what, and like what mech build is technically best for the fight. So you should either like be able to like scan, but it tells you what like the abilities are and what kind of boss it is, or like just be able to swap mid-fight because you've seen his mechanics and you're like, oh yeah, I should probably use this build over what I'm using right now, and then just be able to pause and swap and then go back into the fight.
Ring is the fact that whenever you commit to a build, you have to keep playing that build because you upgraded all the weapons and stats for that build.
Oh my god, yeah. It's
I like the
Diablo.
fact that, like, you know, in, for example, Sekiro, you only
Diablo
really
4,
have
someone
one
said
build,
it.
so you don't
Someone in
have to worry
chat said
about
it.
as
Diablo
much.
4.
But overall, I like being able to swap and change what I'm doing more dynamically.
True.
And they were back with a different build completely.
Yeah, I don't like being
But
locked in.
As to the fight itself, there's actually so much to break
Which is
down
why
in this
like
fight,
games like
but the
this,
main thing I
honestly,
really
like if you're gonna have like, let's say there's like a, you know, small or fast, moderate, slow build, where slow is like ultra powerful, fast is like, you know, fast but not as strong. You should have like 3. It should let you do loadouts, right? Where you have like a loadout saved, for your small fast guy, your medium, fucking jack of all trades guy, or like, moderate at everything. So like if you don't know a fight or scenario, you just bring in the moderate guy. And then you're like ultra powerful slow build, right? Like you should be able to have 3 builds so that you don't have to like, manually change everything. Just have like loadouts. You could swap between like loadouts. Even in combat, you just pause, swap loadout. Good. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Talk
food
about
for thought
happens
for the devs.
here, where they finally stagger the enemy.
For Bandai Namco.
Whereas in Sekiro, this would enable an execution on stagger. In Armored Core 6, it's up to you to fully deliver that execution. The enemy is now taking extra damage, so if you have burst attacks, now's the time. What's more, it seems you can prolong this staggered state with certain attacks, keeping them stun-locked with the right combo, potentially, which might give a really high skill ceiling to this whole process.
Yeah, I would expect so. That's actually really cool.
Here, you can hear a narrator say, "All right, tourist, that's enough." That's because the enemy leader of this facility has been shit-talking you this entire time. The dialogue that I heard was witty and well delivered, and that is a very welcome change from past Armored Core
it's
games.
nice, but
there was also some banter between
gameplay
this
is
narrator
everything.
and your own female operator, who
Story
is
matters
there
though in
to
single player
support you
RPGs,
through your
for sure.
missions and warn you about what's ahead.
Okay.
And a main boss is ahead. But before this, in the demo, the player actually called a resupply drone, replenishing their health, their repair kits, and their ammo, and then it was time to fight this thing.
Is that like a
boss
bonfire?
that has its own health and stagger meter that appears
Probably
at
the
the top of the
bonfire
screen.
just I think gives you
Its
full
attacks are extremely
potions,
well
health, everything
animated and
in Dark Souls.
telegraphed, and it has a
Anyone that
ton of
doesn't know.
area denial and AoE, and it's just so well animated, and it looks like such a great fight. It also has 2 lock-on points, a weak spot at the front, and a shoot at the top, which I guess flying builds might be able to take more advantage of. I wonder how a slow tank build would deal with something like this.
The
It
respect.
seems like it would be hard to get distance and dodge with a tank, hey? Anyway, as promised, let me recreate
Yeah, I guess I'll have to find that out because you guys know I'm never going to respec for this.
the heads-up
I'll just
display
face roll
in
it
more
over and
detail,
over until I eventually
starting
kill it.
with the most important things. First up is your AP, your armor points, or your health, basically, which was displayed numerically and with a slider around here.
There it is.
When the player took damage, this number and the slider would obviously deplete, and the screen would also distort a little bit, especially at the edges, which you can kind of see here.
I see.
Then there was
Okay.
the energy gauge seen around here. This was depleted by things like flight, quick boosting, and I think melee as well.
So it's almost like
Of
your
course, in
stamina.
Armored Core, how big this bar is determined by the capacity of your generator part, and how fast it depletes and recovers is determined by the energy output of that generator and the cumulative energy drain of all of your parts. Of course, the efficiency of your boosters will probably also play a part. Above it was a stagger bar. It was empty by default, but would fill up with orange from the center, just like this, whenever you took damage, and then it would deplete if you didn't take damage for a few seconds. The same goes for enemies. If you get staggered though, I think you just sort of pause for a couple of seconds, and previous interviews seem to suggest that you'll start falling if you're in the air as well.
I think
Next,
that makes
there was
sense, right? I mean, yeah, all that makes
like
sense.
a box here
Yeah.
That's
for
good.
the expansion slot.
Yeah, the more
So
realistic, the better.
Extensions
You
are a
understand, I
category
guess?
of parts that have traditionally allowed you to do unique things like
At least with
jam
physics,
enemy
I
radar,
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
shoot down enemy missiles automatically. Sometimes these extensions were activated manually, sometimes they're passive, and they're like my favorite part category.
I mean,
in Armored Core
the
because
Titan game
they
was
give
sick.
A ton of character.
Everyone loved the Titan game. I forget what the actual name of it, but Titanfall? Yeah, Titanfall was awesome. So that gameplay was really cool. And so this will probably be a lot of fun. I wish they made more mech games that were multiplayer, though. I think that'd be really cool. I think Namco made the Gundam game, but
to your
I don't know. There
build.
was something about Titanfall.
Unfortunately,
If you played
I'm
it,
pretty
you
sure
know,
the demo
felt
had
really good.
no expansion part equipped, so this box was empty. Next to it were 2 bars. One
It'd
was
be
a
really
visual
good.
indicator
Like
for your repair
obviously
kits, of which
like these kind of games would be really good for like VR or like AR. I don't think we're there yet on the technology to make it like really cool, but when it's like good, these games will be insane, and they'll be popping them out like you know, they'll be let's just say they'll be popping them out, because something what I was gonna say is probably not a good idea for YouTube. All right.
the player had 3.
Okay, so those are your heals basically. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's exactly where you would have expected it to be.
I held myself back.
Armored Core has never had an Estus Flask
about
equivalent
it.
before, but it does now.
Yeah.
These can be activated instantly to heal the player, and
Okay.
it seems they can be replenished at supply stations, which can be called in certain missions.
Yep,
apparently.
Estus Flask. Yep.
Underneath repair was a bar that said scan. When activated to scan surroundings for enemies, this bar would take a little while to regenerate, and then it could just be used again. It wasn't long though, like 10 seconds between each scan maybe. On the bottom right were
who
4
cares? That should
familiar
just be
weapon
like
slots.
insta.
They
Who
show your
cares?
total ammo and
be a
your
cooldown.
remaining magazine ammo for your left arm, left back, and right back weapons, respectively.
So you've got 4
This character
weapons.
has missiles on their right back, a machine gun on their
Wow.
right arm, a shield on its left back, and a blade on its left arm.
That's nuts. Holy shit.
Yeah,
You got
4 weapons.
4 weapons? Oh my god.
Now,
Yeah, they said
a
it
recent
earlier.
interview stated that all 4 weapons are bound by default to all 4 controller triggers.
Yeah, that's
and
what
that
makes sense.
All of your weapons can be fired at once, which is not how it's worked in any previous game.
But but the thing is, that would be really cool if you could use all of them at the same time.
That sounds kind
True.
of insane, honestly, and pretend you're holding a controller. I cannot fathom for the life of
Slashing
me
and
how you're
shooting?
supposed to fire all 4 weapons with your pointer and middle finger, and then doesn't that just leave your thumbs free for assault boosting and moving and interacting and changing weapons? Just your thumbs for all those actions seems very difficult, so I'm extremely keen.
People are already
to
saying
get
that
a
it's
hold
not
of
gonna
I mean,
live
I
up
don't
to
know.
Elden
Like
Ring.
that's I mean, people. Yeah, claw
I don't
grip.
even
That's
play
what they
it,
do.
so-
of a demo and see.
And I'm thinking about
what
playing
the
this,
deal
so
is here.
it already
There
has
was a
for me.
vertical speed gauge on the
It's
left.
gone beyond it.
There
I'm
was
actually interested
what
in
looked
playing
like
it.
an altitude gauge on the right.
Uh-huh.
There was
I don't
even a
know what the
compass
hell
at the
you're
bottom
on.
that was actually pretty cool because it had red dots for all of the enemies around you, which I assume would actually be pretty useful when helping to locate the enemies that are just outside.
I'm
your
aware.
field
I'm
of
aware
view.
though that
Yeah,
I'm
that
in
would
the
make
Then
sense.
minority
the mission
for
objective was written top
you know,
left.
not Dark
the
Soul
waypoint
player.
marker was on screen for that objective, and killed
well
enemy
aware.
credit rewards would pop up
Ooh.
on the bottom right. Of course, as mentioned earlier,
That
the
looks
center
painful.
of the screen features your fire control system, your lock-on, essentially. It's circular like it was in Armored Core 5, and while you're out of combat even, it stays in the center of your screen, and it has these sliders that help you keep track of your remaining magazine
I guess your boost,
capacity as
what
you
about your-
fire
I guess your
left
boost
and
too?
right arm and back weapons, which
I'm glad they have that because that way you don't have to be looking around constantly whenever you're in the middle of
Yeah,
combat to
so
see how
true.
many shots you have left. Yeah.
Like when it's in the bottom right, it's like you don't really have to. I mean, you can just do this, but it's just the same with like WoW and like every other game that lets you have add-ons. You always try to like gravitate them towards the center because it's
That's really
fun.
good.
or it
I'm a
makes
huge
things
fan
easier.
of. So
It's fun.
the
Yeah, it's
UI
fun.
is
And I think also like having a more involved UI is kind of part of what being in a mech game is.
Yes.
I feel like I'd be fine with a more minimalistic UI, but in a mech-based game, I don't complain about a more complex UI because like that's the aesthetic of being in a fucking like a walking tank that shoots 4 different types of attacks. Right? Think about how many like menus and fucking, sensors and graphs it's showing you. Yeah, that's just
Yeah.
how it is.
nice. It's super clean and it displays
part of
a
the
ton
fantasy,
of
yeah.
information, but it's this lock-on behavior that I think is the most fascinating thing about
Mm-hmm.
Armored Core 6 so far, and this is the part of the UI that I kind of love the most. So again, when you get in range of an enemy, this lock-on element jumps over to them, while the lock-on display itself starts to display that enemy's health and stagger meter at the top, in addition to your ammo in the bottom left and right. Inside the lock-on, though, there's this little number which dictates how many of your missiles will go to this enemy should you fire them.
Sure.
Again, if you're soft locked on, that number will be split between nearby enemies, and if you're hard locked on, all of the
Oh.
missiles will go.
That's really cool. I was just gonna say though, how did they, like, what if you want to put 2 on one enemy and like 1 on the other? Do you just like stay on it longer and it like ticks like ting ting? You know, that's how other games do it. Like when you just target on them for longer, it'll just add another missile to go to them, and then you can move the cursor to another mob or enemy, and it'll, you know, click once, or it'll send 1 or 2 missiles depending on how long you keep it on them for.
Towards them. Additionally, the lock-on actually updates with an enemy's distance from you, which is extremely important information because staying at optimal weapon range is a really big thing.
Yeah,
in
it
Armored
showed
Core.
that earlier.
And it also shows little damage numbers, which pop up as you pop off. And
Oh,
Everyone
thank
loves
God.
everyone
really
loves seeing the
important
damage.
to give you visual feedback on the effectiveness of your range. Or
Yeah, I feel like any game that doesn't have damage numbers is like an automatic L. I've never felt like a single game is better without damage numbers.
effectiveness of your weapon type. You want to know if you're dealing damage, and I always loved this feature. When it was
PoE? I don't
added
like
in
that
Armored
PoE
Core
doesn't have it.
4, so I'm very glad to see
I
that
wish PoE
return.
did have damage numbers.
I even noticed some little enemy status words pop up around the lockbox, like unaware would pop up if the enemy didn't know you were stealthed, and ACS load limit, I think, popped up if you staggered them. So this lock-on is doing a lot of heavy lifting in Armored Core 6, and I love it. I'm glad they've baked so much information into this UI, because that is such a huge part of what Armored Core is all about.
Yeah.
And what their design
I don't
team
play PoE.
deserves props for is the
Probably
fact
one of the
that they've
reasons.
baked all this information in while keeping everything looking sleek and unobtrusive. It's very
That's,
clever.
I think, the biggest challenge with doing Armored Core is the fact that they know that they have like a huge fan base of people that play every single game that they make. So they know that they're going to have a lot of people that are playing Dark Souls, playing Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, that are going to be playing Armored Core, of course. But they also have the fans of Armored Core series that also want to be, you know, they want a new game that's Armored Core. So it's like, how do you meet in the middle and make a game that like appeals to both of those, like probably very large audiences of people? So I think this is especially like a.
The thing is, you don't really. You just, well, you do and you don't. You do and you see how it goes, and then, you know, if it, like, let's say you had to choose between one community or the other, you choose the one that has more people in it, so you make more profit. And like, honestly, the diehard core fans will probably just still buy it because it's a core game. So it's really about adhering to like the people coming in because they play, you know, other similar games or whatever, right? Yeah, well, I mean, case in point is Diablo 4. I mean, they made it more like casual, but like the people that play it are like super hardcore people that like will spend hours on end, months on end, years on end playing it for no God-given reason other than they just love Diablo.
It's a complex task.
Design, and I hope.
Or
they show
actually,
off
that's not true. Or they just are like literally. They love pain and torturing themselves because they want to farm and get all the best like ancient gear, and then have it reset every season, and then farm it again. And it's all RNG. It's not like WoW where you kill the boss and it still is RNG, but at least the item will drop, kind of thing. I guess the good thing about Diablo is if you have the time, you can farm for 80 hours, 800 hours, whatever. Like, there's no waiting. I guess that's the one good thing about it, but I don't know. Doing the same content that many times, oof. Mm-mm.
the HUD soon, because
No thanks, man.
I'm probably just butchering it in Photoshop now. I have so much more to say about this demo, but it should probably wait for when we get new footage, or for if I get my hands on it, if I'm lucky. In the meantime, if you're curious about Armored Core, then please check out my recent video where I show off every single old Armored Core game. And
Yeah.
I think that video
I'd
will
be
just
curious about that.
always stand as a way for you guys to learn a ton about the series. if
Holy
you don't
shit,
have the
there's a
time
lot of
to
these.
play for
Oh
yourself.
my god.
And
Dang.
I had an amazing time playing all of the old games. But until next time, thank you for watching. I also want to say special thanks to Con
Armored Core
from
Stan.
Bandai, Australia, for getting up at midnight to pass me this footage. That was so appreciated, and it's honestly half the reason I had enough time to edit all of this for you guys. So, thank you, Con. And the same goes for Steven at Bandai and countless others.
I've also had universally good relationships and experiences with the people that work at Bandai Namco. They've been really great and awesome to me too.
Just enable these kind of demos and previews behind the scenes. Thank you. And if you're a content creator who couldn't get access, then you're more than welcome to react to this video and to this footage. I hope that helps somewhat. But thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.
What a nice guy. He knows. Okay, so let's see. All right, so this is the actual gameplay. Let's watch the actual straight up raw gameplay.
Okay, but didn't we just watch it like 5 times or not? We just watched it over and over again in the breakdown, right? Oh, but now you're getting audio stuff. I guess this is him waiting for his cooldown to fly again, I'd imagine.
Okay.
Wasn't too bad. Maybe when you're downward descent, I was gonna say you don't run out of flight, but probably.
One thing I want to draw attention to is that if you actually look at the design of this game, and I'm sure that it'll change a little bit between now and release, but if you compare the design of this game and like the complexity of like these different structures, etc., to the Star Wars game that we watched yesterday, the Star Wars game has infinitely more complexity in terms of fidelity of what each different thing in the world looks like. And even then, I kind of prefer this more. And I think that we're going to get to a point where graphics are very well, like they're very easy to achieve, but a really good looking thing that nobody cares about doesn't matter. And that's one thing that I noticed with the Armored Core fight against like the large robot, is the fact that like if you looked at that robot closely, you would see that like it's not really like a super complex design. It's not like this is some next-gen graphics. It's just stylistically designed to look awesome. And I think that achieves two different things. It makes it easier probably to develop to a certain extent because you spend less time into it. And also it makes it more accessible for a larger scope of platforms. Because now you're not dealing with something that has like these, you know, fucking a million polygons inside of every square inch of the screen. So more PCs can play the game, and it still retains that base stylism that I feel like this game achieves really well. And I love good graphics. I'm a huge fan of good graphics. Awesome. Yeah. But stylized graphics go out of style a lot slower than good graphics do. Good graphics come and go. Like think about a game that had great graphics 5 years ago. Who gives a shit about it now? Think about a game that had a great style 10 years ago. People still love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But graphics do matter to an extent. I feel like graphics definitely matter.
So those are the lock-ons. Okay. Yeah, I'm really impressed by the hitboxes in this game, too. Okay. I don't think they gave this game as much time and work as Elden Ring. Oh, I don't think so either. I think this game is going to be much smaller in scope than Elden Ring. Absolutely. Like, Elden Ring is like their, like, Lord of the Rings extended edition trilogy. And yeah, and that's fine. Like, that's okay. They don't need to make every game as expansive as Elden Ring.
Bandai Namco makes Elden Ring?
Like, I'll say again, I think Elden Ring is the best game. Probably, it's one of the best games ever made of all time. It's incredible. But not every game has to be like that.
It's so funny because I don't agree with that at all, but I haven't really played it.
For example, you have something like Hades, like a small scope in game, but an incredible, amazing game by itself.
I played the Japanese one.
And a lot of older games are not.
I forget what the name is, but I played the Japanese one. That was fun, but not really. I remember. I think I stopped. I forget what boss it was, but I just stopped because it was like too much waiting to attack, and I just wanted to like slash. I didn't want to like have 10-minute boss fights.
Massive and huge in scope. They're just great games.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vampire Survivors. Yeah. I just want a great game. It doesn't need to be my forever 10,000 hour video game. It just needs to be really fun and well designed. Like, that movement is so fucking good. Holy shit, that is insane. You also have way less games since they take longer? Yeah, of course. But yeah, like, again, look at the design on, like, the walls here. Not hyper complex.
Yeah. Who cares?
If you compare that to a lot of the games that we see now that are being developed, like the ones that we've seen a lot of these expos recently, the AAA ones, the AAA games nowadays have way more, like, you know, just fucking complexity in the design.
But they can because of the engine they're on. If they're on, like, Unreal Engine 5, it's, like, easy to make complexity or whatever. You know, at the end of the day, technology's going to advance faster than people's computers do unless they're constantly updating them. I mean, it's just the reality. But I get the scope. I think they need to work on, like, scaling better and stuff so that, like, you know, when you have the lower setting graphics, then you can get it like that. But if someone's on a fucking mega computer, they can have every little detail, like see a fly on the wall, whatever, you know? And you look at, like, Jedi Survivor and some of these other games, like even D4, like, they're just off when it comes to, like, scaling and optimizing their games, and that's where it really falls apart for them, because then it makes the gameplay experience, like, unenjoyable or, like, literally unplayable. You're just, like, playing the game at, like, 15 frames a second. Yeah. I think the most important thing in a game is graphics to an extent. More importantly, the actual gameplay and combat system. If the combat system sucks, I don't want to play it. It doesn't matter how beautiful it looks. It doesn't not matter. So if you have to choose, or if I had to choose, I would pick, you know, definitely combat over graphics for sure.
And you know what?
But 3D.
I don't care.
Don't do it in 2D.
I don't give a fuck.
3D or
because games that have great graphics, I look at them and I say, wow, that looks really cool. Damn, that's awesome. And I never play it. But I look at something like this and I'm like, man, I want to play this game.
Yeah, but you look at the graphics of, like,
graphics
dodging,
are like sprinkles on a cupcake.
Cool.
They make the cupcake look a lot better and more appealing, but you're not going to buy a cupcake for the sprinkles.
Yeah. Yeah, they focus on the mech and the combat, which is really good, because a lot of games will focus on
you do.
The surroundings and environment, but meanwhile the combat and the gameplay is
yeah, you've got, like, all the different things, like cooling speed, all that stuff. Let me go back and just look at it.
Definitely better to focus on
capacity,
what matters,
weight. I think that, yeah, these are probably, like, different breakpoints for weight. I think that's interesting too. Okay, cool. I wonder if you can play a full melee build in this game. I bet not.
I mean, you probably can, but you'd suffer. And I guess you would only have 2 swords, though. So you have 4 weapons, so you wouldn't. You would never be full melee. Because you don't have 4 arms to do, like, 4-blade strat.
Jesus, he missed.
Be pretty cool,
my
though.
God. The iframes? Yeah, what the fuck? So he has, like, a force field around him? Nice. So this is the big boss right here. Combat looks fun? Yeah. Are you going to play the PvP of this game? It would be cool to try. I feel like the PvP of this game would make me more excited than, like, even Elden Ring, kind of.
Yeah. PvP in this game would be really cool. I don't know how they're going to do it, though.
So I guess like the different these things have like more vulnerability points or something, maybe like on the top or something.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Wait, what?
Music sounds so good. Yeah, it does. Dash acceleration's crazy, yeah. Games like this, I feel like a lot of them are all about the movement and just like the playability. To me, that is the only thing that matters. And if that's not right, and you have like weird iframes, or there aren't iframes,
it's
or
horrible.
there's some sort of like bad hitboxes, etc., things that are what do you call it? Like things that are non-responsive. That is like, ugh, we don't want that.
Yeah.
And what we do want is, in my opinion, at least, precise fucking gameplay. Precise, responsive, quick gameplay. That is the main thing that matters to me. Whenever I look at a game, that is what matters the most. And I feel like Armored Core, after seeing all this stuff, I think we're going to get it. I do. I think we're going to get it. Vadi Vidya, if you guys don't know who he is a massive he's probably like the biggest content creator for like the Souls series and like, you know, Dark Souls type games. Makes insane fucking lore videos. I've watched probably like 20 of them. I was gonna say 50. I don't know if he's even made 50, but I've watched a lot of them. Yeah, it's very, very good. I see New World hired the new lead game designer for AOC. The dev from New World got hired as new lead game designer for Ashes Creation. Yeah, I saw that. I think that's probably a good thing, but we'll have to just wait and see.
Oh, that'd be
the new big graphics, very consistent way that.
Oh man, you gotta be careful with that. That's scary. That is scary. I'll say that.
To sell games, sadly. Well, that's because
as long as you know what, as long as they don't have anything to do with the balancing of the game, it's fine. If whoever balanced New World and like actually like designed all the spells and crap did a horrible job because everything was so bugged. And then like the devs who were in charge of like balancing just made melee OP and they made mage obsolete. So that is not a good play melee. If it's the same guy, play melee.
Excited about new graphics, right? I get that. Like graphics are nice, they're good, but I'm not gonna go back and
rip AOC, yeah.
10 years and think about like, oh wow, this game's graphics was very good. I think that like there were like benchmarks of games that were just like so graphically insane for their time that everybody talked about them. Like Final Fantasy X, Half-Life 2, I'd say maybe Witcher 3, Crisis, Doom 3, Doom 3 whenever it came out for, that was a 360. Yeah, had very good graphics. And there's probably Cyberpunk, couple of other ones, etc. New World was a benchmark for MMOs at least.
Cyberpunk had so many bugs.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of
New World,
games like
New World
that.
was a great game, and it just got ruined by bugs. Really.
That you do remember, but they're very few and far between, and most games are not like that. So yeah, I mean, Armored Core, I am massively fucking hyped for this. Doesn't this come out in like a couple of months too? It's not like we have to wait for like 3 years for this, like we did with Elden Ring. Yeah, it comes out in August. Like, what the fuck? That's in 2 months. That is insane. Oh my god.
That's pretty good.
So many good games. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, keep that in mind. I feel like, yeah, we're used to what happened with Elden Ring, and it's like, oh, this is gonna happen, you know, come out in like a few years. No, man, like it's gonna be a long fucking time. And so, it's gonna be not a long time. It's not gonna be a long fucking time.
It's gonna be short.
It's gonna be really fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
Same.